Welcome back to The Book Stop. I'm so excited to talk about today's episode. Fair warning moving forward, this podcast does contain spoilers as we go over major events within the novels. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast. Welcome!
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, today we have my friend Charolette.
Hello.
What book did you bring for us to talk about today?
So I brought the guest list, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm very excited to hear your thoughts about it.
All right. What kind of drew you to it?
So I've been looking for like a mystery book that wasn't too intense or spooky or something like that, but still interesting. And my sister actually picked this one out for me for a gift, and it was also on the Goodreads like top mystery list for last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it ended up being a really good choice.
Awesome. So before we get into it, a little bit about the author. So the guest list was written by Lucy Foley, who studied literature at Durham University. She was a fiction editor for a long time before she finally moved into writing herself. And as you said, she did win the 2020 award for the best mystery thriller on Goodreads. So that's awesome. Good for her. So I like to start the podcast out with a little game to kind of get you going. So I want you to summarize this book in 30 seconds. But twist as if you were the guest that attended the wedding.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And now you are going to rate it.
So getting off the boat onto a deserted island practically where there's like one building and there's a huge tent and it's beautiful and there's lights, and we go to this like half fallen down chapel for Jules and Wells's wedding, and the ceremony goes pretty much, without a problem. Into the reception, the drinks are flowing, the wind's a blowing, and all of a sudden the power's out. And we're like, what the heck? Where's the power? What's happening? And we hear this like blood-curdling scream, and this waitress is freaking out. She can't even tell us what's going on. So the groomsmen set off into the darkness, and they come back covered in blood, and we find out that Will has been murdered, and we have to figure out who does it.
Good job. I know it's very hard.
I feel like I would be terrible in, like, if I was actually interrogated, they'd be like, this girl's crazy.
No, I think you did a good job. So much happens in this book, and we're going to talk about it in a second.
So much happens. But I'm just going to summarize it for anybody who hasn't heard of this book before. So, in the suspense novel, appearances can be deceiving as pretty boy Will and the elegant, successful Jules appear to be the perfect couple. While the two do look good together, there is a dark side of Will lurking below the surface. The past and the present collide during their wedding ceremony as old friends reminisce their wilder days, uncovering secrets Will has been trying to keep hidden. So, to jump right into it, we're going to talk about our favorite quotes. So I'll go first. My favorite quote was, "Just because the rest of us don't wear our hearts on our sleeves, just because we have found a way to manage our feelings, it doesn't mean they're not there." I think, to be fair, I'm pretty sure Jules says this quote. It honestly could be for any of the characters. Because I think all of them, apart from Olivia, a lot of them are very good at hiding how they're feeling. And all of them seem to be like kind of wearing a mask a lot of the times. And they kind of try to appear like either completely emotionless or they try to just be crazy happy. Which makes sense because it's a wedding. But right,
everyone, even like the characters that weren't part of the POV, I feel like they all had their own sort of like secrets to hide.
Yeah.
So,
because when Hannah was talking to those guys at the bar, and they were like, they knew what they were talking about, but Hannah didn't, but she was able to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like everyone just is very mysterious, which I guess is good for a mystery, but
it makes sense.
They definitely all
were hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if they had all been honest about their secrets, then everything would have came to light so much sooner and we wouldn't have had a book.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of these secrets that these people have that we're going to talk about they're very dark and they can essentially ruin people's lives. So,
yeah.
Before we start, what is your favorite quote?
So mine's actually a little bit longer because it required somewhat of context, but it was from Jono. The survivors, we echo him, which is Will. And just for a moment, when I look at all the others, they look different, younger. It's like the sun has gilded them. You can't see Feme's bald spot from this angle and Angus's paunch. And Pete looks less like he only goes out at night. And if possible, even Will looks better, brighter. I have this sudden sense that we're back there sitting on that sports hall roof and nothing bad has happened yet. I'd give a fair amount to return to that time. And so I feel like this kind of set the tone because it was a little bit earlier in the book. And so Jono doesn't realize what this means yet. But like as a reader, it's more telling than anything to me. This quote kind of sets the tone. It's Lucy referring to past events in trauma and also future events in trauma, but we don't realize that yet, but she kind of knows. And I think it's a good tone set because they're very nostalgic about the past and everything that has happened, but Jono is glad to be away from that now and that they are moving forward. And so he's hoping like in the future they can look back on this wedding and these times and it be that nostalgic moment as well and be like, oh wow, like we had such good times then. And I think it's also kind of looking at all the characters as if nothing's wrong as well because they're gilded and you can't see their flaws, like the bald spot and the overweight tummy, and like even Will somehow looks better even though he's like this pretty boy everyone wants. And so it's kind of just the rose-colored glasses on everything and just has that moment. And I feel like I know that feeling, even not in this context per se, but like you just kind of know when you look back or you're looking around you when you're with your friends and you're like, wow, like I'm going to look back on this and think that was such a great time or something like that.
Yeah, I think this quote really shows like Jono as a character too, because I feel like he was one of the characters that had the slowest build up because there wasn't a ton about him. And I wish there was more to it. Like, for example, when he had his like night terror almost, I wish it kind of dove more into that because I was kind of confused a little bit. He was very drunk and saw like the shadow.
Sleep demon, yeah.
Yeah, I wish it kind of dove more in. I'm guessing it was probably of that little kid.
Right.
Tragically we're gonna talk about it in a second, but everything happened too, so I don't know if maybe it was that coming back to haunt him, but I just wish there was more about Jono. Like I didn't really like him at the beginning, but the more he kind of developed in the story, I kind of understood him better. Yeah.
I feel like I don't remember my first impressions of people, but I do feel like I remember thinking I wasn't that big of a fan of Jono. I think he maybe seemed kind of arrogant, which is ironic knowing him later in the story.
Yeah. To kind of like jump into it, I want to know like what did you like about this book? What didn't you like about the book? And then I'll talk about what I didn't like about the book and liked about the book.
Okay, so for me, I didn't like the jumping back and forth between the current events of everyone and then the night of the murder. I liked getting a glimpse of the murder at the beginning, but I feel like jumping back to it randomly throughout the book for really short pages didn't help me. It didn't tell me anything. It kind of just added to the slowness because I felt that a big chunk of the book was slow to me because we were getting them off the boat to their hotel rooms, into the rehearsal dinner, and then like a little bit in between those things of them just kind of side conversations or whatnot. And then we get to the night of the wedding finally.
Yeah, and it also did a lot of flashbacks too. A lot.
Yeah.
So that also drew it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true too, because we were jumping not only from the current time, I guess kind of forward in time, and then way back in time. And that's what the one thing I didn't like was all the different time jumps.
Mm-hmm.
But I get needing to set up the characters and kind of give a little background on them so we have a feel of what type of person they are for later. But I just think we did it a few too many times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I have to say I did like the multiple points of view for this particular story. Normally, I'm not that much of a point of view story person because I think it can get confusing, especially since there's 5 here.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like it for this because you kind of have more suspects. I can see how it would be a good movie and how each person would be a suspect. And I also liked how I could feel that her desk was just covered in a bunch of papers of her mapping out this timeline and everyone's stories, because everyone's stories connected somehow, like their backstories connected somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know that they were all connected, but they were keeping those secrets. So there was no way they would have known until everything starts coming out later.
I really like that about the story too, like the different points of views. Another thing I really liked about it is that Lucy's like writing style is so descriptive, and I think she does such a beautiful job at describing things. But I will say that a lot of the times it did kind of get in the way of the storytelling. But of course, everything had a reason. Like, there was a reason why she talked about him not remembering his suit and all this backstory stuff. Like, obviously, it was all towards this main goal at the end. But yeah, I really like the descriptions. Her writing style is very good. I personally liked the time jumps. I think it was a good way to tell the story without doing a huge like information dump. Instead of like just dumping everything all at the same time. She was able to break it up so you could slowly collect the ideas and you can slowly kind of figure out your own idea of who it is that murdered Will. So I personally like that. I think there was maybe a little too many. I think the issue was that, for example, when she jumped to now, which was the wedding night, she would jump and then right before something suspenseful happened, she would just cut it off.
Yeah.
Like, abruptly cut it off and then jump to the next thing. And I'm like, okay, you could have given it a little bit more, but
yeah.
That's all right.
I'd have to agree.
Yeah. I love stories with POVs in it, and I think this was one that kind of definitely made sense. Like you were saying, that it makes it more suspenseful because there's more people involved and you want to see why they're involved and what their kind of hand was in it. So, and everyone connected. So I think it was a good way to show not only the characters themselves, but other characters around them, to see how, like, that person's point of view perceived another person, and it really shapes the difference. So I really like that. What I didn't like. So I didn't love how slow it was. I personally am not a huge fan of mystery thriller, like mostly mystery, because I've read a lot of books, I'll say, and it's the same with like TV shows. I can't really watch mysteries because I figure it out too easily.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I knew that the stories connected about probably less than halfway. The letter really gave it away for me. And the second that Olivia was like talking about this older guy, Steven, I was like, oh, they're the same person then.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't see coming was the murder at the end, who it was. That's the one that I didn't catch. But everything else I kind of picked up through the clues that Lucy was kind of leaving behind. So I'm just not a huge fan of mysteries, but I think the way that this story was told was very good. It was just a little too much, I guess. Like, too much background. I know she was doing it so I could get, like, connected with the characters, but I think it kind of almost got in the way.
Interesting.
I felt connected, but at the same time, I felt like I don't need every, like, inch of their life.
You thought she was a little bit too much of a deep dive, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
See, that's funny. So, I don't know if I'm just because I like the idea of a mystery or if I'm just not that observant, but I feel like I eventually picked up on the clues, like, oh, Steve is this older guy, but it's actually Will, and that sort of thing. I eventually picked it up, but before they blatantly said. But the one thing that I did kind of figure out was who was the murderer. That's the one. It was almost to the last second, but I did eventually figure it out. I was like, oh, wait, this is who did it. Like, I had that last minute put together somehow. And then I, like, turned the page a couple times. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Okay.
So to kind of dive into the story, I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. Like we've been saying, this story is so in-depth. It's so detailed. Everything has a reason. So basically, Jules and Will are the bride and groom of this wedding that is happening on, they call it the Folly, right? Or is
the Folly is like the hotel. I don't think I could pronounce the name of the island. Or the name of the wedding planner.
Yeah, it's off the coast of...
Ireland?
Yeah, it's off the coast of Ireland. The wedding planner's name is Aoife.
Aoife. Okay, wow, that is not what I said in my head.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook, so that helped a lot.
Oh, that makes sense.
So let's go over all the point of views. We have Aoife, who is the wedding planner, who owns the island. We have Will and Jules, who's the bride and groom. We have Olivia, who is Jules' half-sister, who's the bridesmaid. And then we have Hannah, who is the +1, and she's married to Charlie, who is Jules' best friend. It's a very deep web, but basically they have this wedding. Will is his famous, I wouldn't necessarily say movie star. He's part of like a TV show that's really popular.
He's kind of like a glamorous Bear Grylls.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what he is. Oh, and Jono. I forgot about Jono. Jono is Will's the best man. He's Will's best friend. They went to private school together. And they have a very dark past that we're going to talk about. But everyone is kind of intertwined with each other. And everyone has their own secrets. And those secrets really put a target on their own backs. They all have something that they're hiding from everyone else. And it makes them all suspects. So the wedding happens, and you just slowly see people, having more drinks, getting more drunk, and things just start unfolding.
The alcohol was their truth serum, practically.
Absolutely, yeah. And as everything kind of comes to a close, you become more and more suspicious of, I personally think, the wrong person, because I thought it was going to be Jono for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you hear this story about Jono and Will being in school, and it's this very tragic story of them doing this, like, they call it a game, where they would tie somebody up and they have to survive the night.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ironic because that is the TV show that Will works for, is called Survive the Night, and he does the same exact thing. You get untied and then you try to get back to home base. Well, Will and Jono did this to a small
puny freshman.
They tied him up to a post, and the sea came in and he tragically passed. And in the end you find out that the person that kills Will is that boy's sister.
Yeah.
And it's just all connected so deeply. I have to give an applause, a clap for Lucy for being able to plan this out so perfectly.
The thing it reminded me of, which I don't know if this is a compliment to Lucy or not, because it reminds me of Pretty Little Liars. And I know a lot of people hate Pretty Little Liars because it was like a crazy bonkers show, which I mean it is, but I for some reason really liked it. But the details and the connections of everything just that Lucy did reminds me kind of Pretty Little Liars, and how there were so many twists and turns and whatever in that show, and it's similar to this, and so that's just kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah. I've personally never seen that show, but I've heard...
I'm not missing much.
But it's definitely a book that you have to kind of read, and it's hard to do anything else because you have to really focus on a lot, because there's such tiny clues everywhere, and if you're not deeply invested in the story, it's really easy to miss them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was really cool. Who would you say is your favorite character?
So I think my favorite character ended up being Hannah. I can't say that I particularly liked anyone a ton just because of their different personality types and whatnot. But I think Hannah did become my favorite because she's the most relatable, for me at least, out of them, which is kind of ironic because we're not very similar. But she, in general, just kind of has that more relatable type about her. And so, like, she's originally depicted as a jealous wife and that she doesn't like Jules because of Charlie and their past. And even though there's not really a past, but she never felt that way to me. I never felt like she was jealous. I think it was shown how Hannah always trusted Charlie to the full extent. Like, she never questioned him. She gave him his space when he needed it. And, you know, she just fully trusted him. You know, they were married and for a while, and they had 2 kids and have lived life together. So she just fully trusted him. So I never felt the jealous aspect that Hannah was portrayed as. I think even though she did trust him that much, she also was realistic. And I think she was more aware than she let on to be, which ended up benefiting her because people, or I guess specifically Charlie, thought like, oh, she trusts me, like I can do whatever and she won't question it. And how when he went to the bachelor party, or the stag night as they call it, when he went to that and he came back clearly traumatized for some reason, but refused to talk about it, she was like, okay, I'll respect your space. Never questioned it. You know, she was curious and she was aware, but she never questioned him. And she was like, you know, in time, it'll come out or happen and they can talk about it then. But I think everyone kind of depicted her as unaware, even though she was very aware. And so she was picking up on things and putting things together in her head, which is how she eventually came to the conclusion without ever asking if Jules and Charlie had ever slept together. And so she, like, I think always knew, but of course, eventually finding out for sure is always heartbreaking, especially when you're, like, married to someone for so long.
Yeah, they were married for 20 years, so.
Yeah, like, that's a long time. And they got married young as well. She mentioned and how they waited a little bit to have kids because her kids, I think, were younger. Yeah. And so they had lived a full, not a full, but they lived a lot of time together just as a married couple, doing whatever they wanted and whatnot. But so I think she kind of was the type where she would step back, let people show their true colors, and then they didn't know what they were revealing to her because they thought she wasn't paying attention or that she was making, you know, stuff up in her head because she was jealous or whatnot. But I think, you know, I think that's how you stay ahead, is you let people show you their true colors, and then you can kind of come in and hit them with, like, these facts later, you know, these receipts.
Yeah, absolutely. I also had Hannah down because I agree. She cares extremely deeply about, example, Olivia. And she's very caring about Olivia. She, you know, was with her a lot of the times when she was kind of opening up about her past. And I know she saw a lot of Alice in Olivia. Yeah. Alice is Hannah's sister that tragically passed.
Yeah, she committed suicide.
Yeah, she committed suicide. We're going to talk about that in a second because it ties in with the story, of course. Yeah, I liked Hannah. She pays attention to things. She is a very intelligent woman. Things click together so fast. Like, she figured out that Will was Steven almost instantly. Well, at the wedding, at least. And she has her own drive all the time, and she's just too afraid to act on it.
Right. It's like she has these independent tendencies, but she kind of holds back because she just doesn't want to do the wrong thing. That's the one thing, is she never wants to do the wrong thing. So she's very she cares a lot about how she appears to these other people and whatnot. Yeah.
She doesn't want to embarrass Charlie, her husband, and even though Charlie cheated on her and all this stuff. But I kind of want to go to the stag party that you mentioned just now.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest, the stag party was one of the most intriguing stories that she built up, because just from the way that Charlie reacted, because there was mystery behind it. She didn't have any idea what was going on. Charlie was very aggressive towards her when she asked what happened. You know, he was literally
yes.
growling at her. So,
yeah.
And then to find out it was literally because Will's friends made fun of him and he cried. And I was like, are you kidding me? That was the biggest letdown.
So, yeah, I can see what you mean. The buildup of the stag night was like this insane thing happened. And given they did put him on like a mini island by himself, like practically naked, tied up or whatever. But I think that is where his embarrassment and trauma comes from, is the fact that they were able to do that to him, and that he wasn't able to protect himself when he was most vulnerable, which is like asleep.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he wouldn't have wanted to tell Hannah. Maybe because he thought she would say something to Jules and Will, and that would be more embarrassing. But I don't know why he wouldn't have told her, because I would expect, like, when you're married to someone and something traumatic happens to you, that the first person you would want to tell is your spouse.
Yeah. I thought they, like, killed somebody on their stag. Like, that's how it felt. I thought it was,
like, a repeat.
Yeah, like, something really bad, like, illegal happened. Felt like the buildup was just placed in the wrong spot. Like, they could have used that buildup for maybe the actual murder that happened.
I don't remember Hannah. I mean, she thought it was awful, but I don't remember her thinking like, oh boy, I better go talk to someone about this, and why would they ever consider doing that? Like, she was like understanding and considerate of how it made him feel, you know, like she validated his feelings. But I also feel like she didn't necessarily care.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, like, yes, they played this mean trick on you and then made fun of you for crying. But, like, who cares? I mean, it's not like Charlie wanted to be friends with those people. I think a lot of it also came from the fact that they were Will's friends, and that Will is going to be Jules's husband, and there was maybe some jealousy from Charlie about Will and everything, so that's kind of... So he felt maybe inferior even more so to Will and his friends. And, like, oh, how would Jules view me now type thing. But I feel like it's something he could have either moved on from somewhat easily or go to therapy. If it, you know, it is a traumatic event to feel like you almost died. I understand that. So, like, he should try therapy, but he doesn't seem like the type that would go. So,
yeah, definitely. Charlie, I feel like, is more complicated than what Lucy really almost planned for him, because he wasn't really he wasn't a main character, and the only connection he really had was to Jules, and that kind of made that driving force for Hannah. Another thing I didn't like about this story was I personally felt like it didn't have much drive. It felt like it was going nowhere for a while because there was so much buildup. You know, everything happened in everyone's, like, last chapter. It all started to unfold. So when I was reading it, I felt like for a while it was just not going anywhere.
I can agree.
Because it didn't feel like a mystery, or it definitely didn't feel like a thriller. Like, I didn't feel any suspense for a lot of the parts in the book. But then again, I did kind of figure out a couple things before she said it, so I don't know if maybe that took it away. So from somebody that didn't really pick up as much, maybe it was a little bit more suspenseful. So
a lot of the chapters were their mundane daily things that you would normally do leading up to a wedding. I need my outfit, or like we have the rehearsal dinner and getting off the boat and that sort of thing. But it wasn't like, I feel like the mystery part of it came from me constantly thinking like, okay, how does this play into the eventual murder and that sort of thing. So like in my head, I was like building it up and whatnot, but actually reading it, it was like, we got dressed. We did this. And it's like, we were talking to Aoife. So like build up came, I think, from my own self rather than her beginning chapters.
Yeah. To kind of basically sum up the end of the book, how everyone kind of connects is starting with Charlie and Hannah. Hannah finds out that Charlie slept with Jules after she had their first son, which is messed up.
So messed up.
That instantly knocked Charlie down a lot of pegs.
Oh, for sure.
And then Jono and Will have this very dark past. They're best friends because they have this secret kind of like connecting them. And the wedding planner, Aoife, she ends up killing Will. it just all connects so crazily. Literally the last, I want to say 2 chapters, all of this happens.
Yeah.
Where they find Will, you know, Hannah's finding out about the cheating, the other thing was Olivia.
Oh, yeah.
Olivia is the biggest part of the whole story, honestly.
She is a big part.
So, Olivia she's 19 in the story, so she's very young compared to everyone else who's in their 30s. She was dating this boy, and then they broke up, and she felt really sad, depressed, so she got on a dating app and started dating, like, this older man named Steven, and it turns out that Steven is actually Will, who kind of, like, left her behind, and then ended up, like, meeting Jules literally the same night that they broke up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also find out that Hannah is connected to Will because Will did the same thing to Alice, where he ruined, like, her whole life.
Like, times 10, yeah.
Yeah, he took pictures of them when they were intimate, and she wanted to be a politician, right? She wanted to be...
I think so.
Politics. She couldn't have that because the video was all over the web now, so she ended up committing suicide, so everything just connects so...
Mm-hmm.
They're just so slotted in perfectly. So like I said, I give props for Lucy to plan this all out perfectly. It must have taken years to plan this out.
It definitely seems like it, because I was thinking about that. I'm like, just to like put it all down and just be like, okay, this person connects to them this way. And it would have taken her a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Alice, when we first hear it, is Hannah telling about it, and we don't know the context fully. We just hear about it, and I'm like, that is so awful. Like, how would they have not tried to go after the guy who did this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if they didn't know who he was or anything about him, there's no way they could have found him. But I don't know, I feel like someone would have had to have known who Alice was dating, and that they could have figured it out. I understand that they were going through grief and such when Alice died, but I feel like as parents, like, your responsibility is to, like, put the pressure on finding out who did this, you know, like, someone has to know.
Right.
So I think was kind of a letdown for me, because it's like, Alice deserves, you know, justice, but I guess she kind of gets it in a way. I actually, for a while, you said you thought Jono was going to be the person, and I did think that as well when we got closer, but for a while, I truly thought it was going to be Hannah, because I just feel like she has all this pent-up rage about Alice's death from the get-go, and it's you know, she doesn't know what to do with it because she has no outlet, but when she finds out that Will is the reason, I feel like that would be enough to, like, pop the cork off and Hannah just go off the rails, because she was already upset about Charlie, and she was upset about, you know, her sister because it was around the anniversary, and then having a stressful weekend, and then finding out it was Will, I feel like would have just sent her off the rails, and she could have easily have done it.
Literally, the book ends with Hannah saying, "I wish I was the one that twisted the knife." Yeah. And I think that was a great way to end it, because like you literally just said, I think it would have been good if Hannah also... I think everyone had their own motives.
Mm-hmm. And that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that led me to believe, like, perhaps it is the wedding planner, is because she's the only one who we didn't really know why she was connected. Like, we knew she knew Jules because of the blog and that sort of thing, but everyone was connected to both somehow. Like, Olivia to Will because, you know, of their dating past, and Jules because that's her sister, and Hannah because of her sister, and then Charlie is her connection with Jules, and Jono because he knows the couple and stuff. So I was like, how is Aoife connected to Will? And then it eventually is because of that. You know, the fact that she was so standoffish in the writing, like, she wasn't around much in anyone else's stories except for Jules, because they had to directly communicate, but, like, she wasn't around much, and so you kind of start to forget about her until her chapter comes up. And so that's one of the things that tipped me off, is that she was just too quiet.
Yeah. I honestly half the time forgot there was even a murder.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot to suspect people. I was too focused on the whole
trio with like Charlie, Jules, and Will. And the letter. I figured out pretty early on that Olivia and Jules and Will were all connected because of that letter. When you do any kind of point of view, usually they always connect.
Right.
Either like they're the same person, but just in different timelines, or all in the same circle. I thought this one was really planned out very well. It wasn't necessarily just one mystery, it was multiple different ones, like little ones that kind of connected at the end. Also, can we talk about how satisfying the ending was when Will died? Because you start the story with him being this like beautiful thing that everybody wanted, and he started out as a nice guy.
I just never got that impression.
Really? From just reading, everybody just really loved him.
Okay, I agree that obviously they made him that way, but I just never felt that way about him. I was like, what makes him so desirable? Like, he seems very average.
Yeah, I literally thought he's just a TV star. He's not even a movie star, so he can't be that great. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And a fraud.
Yeah, exactly. But for a second, I thought it was Jules that was going to die.
Yeah, because I couldn't figure out who was going to die. That was my main mystery in my head. I was like, who's going to freaking die and when? Because let's get to it.
That brings me to my next point of there was a lot of almost deaths. There was Hannah with the like quicksand thing, like she was in the mud and couldn't get out. Honestly,
I forgot about
should have killed Hannah right there. I think she should have died right then. I think it would have really, yeah, I think it would have really, because I think Hannah was a lot of people's favorite characters, and I think that would have really threw in a lot of suspicions, because then you would think, oh yeah, Hannah's the one that was the dead body, but no, it was actually a murder, and she just never was found because she was out in the middle of nowhere trying to get phone reception, and those two guys find her. I don't know. I think she should have died right then. I think it would have really built a lot of suspense.
Interesting.
And then there was Olivia almost drowning in the water because she's, remembering all this time that she had with Will and how she got pregnant from him, had an abortion.
And she was trying to kill herself.
Yeah, so there was a lot of like
walking out into sea.
Exactly. She just walked out in the rough waters that's surrounding this island. There was a time when they were on that huge building looking over, and I thought Jules was going to fall and die. So there was a lot of like almost deaths.
I also thought, does Will kill Jono?
Yeah.
That was one of the things I had thought, because like when Jono finds out from the producer that Will took their Survive the Night idea and took it to the producers, because they took it to the producers of a show together, and they wanted Jono, not Will.
No, they wanted both of them, because they said that Jono...
I thought they wanted Jono.
They wanted both, because they said that Will was too hard and didn't appeal to the male audience, so they wanted both of them, so they had a hard and a soft.
Oh, you're right. And I think, honestly, the show would have been a lot more... I don't know what the show was like, but I feel like a show is more interesting when you have two people kind of to... bounce off of each other. And
like this podcast.
Like this lovely podcast. But I feel like they didn't explain the show in depth. We were supposed to just understand it from them talking about their Survive the Night game. Mm-hmm. But I feel like... Not that we needed to get into their show, but when Will finds out that Jono finds out, I think he kind of just figures it out in his head without Jono telling him. Mm-hmm. And Will, I thought for sure was gonna like go kill Jono and then get back to the wedding and just like fluff his suit and be fine for the rest of the night. And then it's like, oh no, Jono died. Like, just kind of pretend, but... So that's where I thought it was going. And then I agree with you that, okay, it's Jono, like he does it, but then it's like double plot twist.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like they all had their own motives. Like Olivia was just always anxious and had severe depression. And I thought I honestly thought it was going to be her that died, because she would have something happened and memories, and she would have like attempted suicide, and I thought it was her for a while. Then I thought Jules was gonna kill somebody because she has anger issues, bad.
She has anger issues, so I thought it was gonna be her too.
It definitely took me by surprise.
They all took turns being suspects.
Yeah, that was the one that didn't get me. I did not see the wedding planner. Should have been the wedding. I should have saw it coming, but I didn't. That was good.
who is your favorite relationship? It doesn't have to be romantical either. It could be any relationship.
Right. So I went with Hannah and Olivia. I thought they were a very nice pair because Olivia, I feel like, craved that, like, whether it's a sister or a mother, just like a motherly figure from someone, because Olivia and Jules' mom is a little bit nuts, and even when she's present, she's absent because she's either drinking or off in her own world. She's kind of a narcissist because she always was putting herself first rather than her kids, even though Jules felt like Olivia got special treatment. You know, Olivia felt neglected. I think drove a wedge between Jules and Olivia, so they didn't have that sisterly relationship either. But Olivia is so young, like, she needs someone, you know, someone to talk to and guide her and be there for her. And Hannah was craving that sisterly bond because, you know, Alice had died and it was the anniversary of it. And so I think they both kind of needed each other and they didn't know it. And so their, you know, conversations and stuff, they came together really well. And Hannah was able to be like a motherly, sisterly figure for Olivia. And Olivia was able to fill in that sister bond for Hannah that she needed. So I thought they were good together. And they both were so easily able to be open with one another. Like, Olivia was just talking about her past nonchalantly and didn't seem too concerned about it. Like, she was a little hesitant, but she felt safe talking to Hannah.
Yeah.
And Hannah wanted her to open up.
It was a couple of times where Olivia's like, I have to stop because I've already said too much, but she didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
I also picked Olivia and Hannah. I think, like, even from the beginning with that first cave scene, they had a very clear, like, sister dynamic, and they both fed off of each other. Olivia was feeding off Hannah because she wanted somebody to talk to, and she didn't trust any of her family members, and Hannah was saying, you know, I wish I was there for Alice. I wish she had somebody to talk to, so I want to be there for you. And Hannah was feeding off of Olivia because it made her feel young, and that was a big thing for her, is like she felt old. And when she was telling the story of like the older guy was Stephen, she was like living like vicariously through her. So I thought that they had a very engaging relationship, and I think that helped drive a lot of the plot. So
do you think like Will's murder is going to be something that brings together Olivia and Jules and like kind of help mend that broken relationship?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, because Jules now knows that Olivia was with Stephen. Well, Will, I guess, is not his actual name. And I feel like if she were to find out that she was pregnant with his kid too, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't really think their relationship's going to change, because I don't think either one of them really wanted to change deep down, because they don't really trust each other. Honestly, I think if anything, I think Olivia and Hannah would have a better relationship. I feel like it's something that they would, you know, if you need me, call me type deal. If you want to talk, call me. So it's really hard to say if it would get better.
I think it could go either way with Olivia and Jules. That, like, because I remember when they found out, like, Olivia went straight to Jules' side, and, you know, they were hugging and crying and stuff. But I can also see what you mean of how they're, you know, Jules knowing about Olivia and Will and how that does change the dynamic for her. But, you know, at the same time, I feel like she can't blame Olivia because it was before he met her. I mean, it was the day he met Jules, but, like, he didn't know he was going to.
Right. I think it's just the fact that they kept it a secret that kind of affects it. I don't know. It's hard to say. So I have a game, if you're ready.
Okay.
So we're going to play a little true or false.
Oh boy.
About different connections, different relationships. So the first one we have is Hannah is married to Charlie.
Well, that's true.
That is true. Aoife and Freddie own the Folly.
I think that's true because they own the island.
Yep, so they own the Folly. Jono owns a wine company.
That's false. He That was also all fake, and I forgot about that pretend whiskey business.
Yep. Olivia's ex-boyfriend is named Cole.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna say false. I feel like it was like Peter or Pete or something.
It was Calum.
Oh, Calum.
Yeah. Stupid name. Just kidding. Any Calums out there?
Calum.
I'm just kidding. Callum. Either one. Just kidding. Jono is the best man.
That's true.
It's true. Will's TV show is called Get Through the Night.
That's false. Survive the Night.
Survive the Night. And Will's dad is the headmaster of a private school.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about their parents being there as well. That one's true, yeah.
Yay, you win!
Woo! I only missed one.
But yeah, is there any kind of like last minute things you want to talk about? Anything that we didn't mention before you want to talk about?
Okay, I had like a couple questions, but one of them being, do you think Hannah and Charlie stayed together after this trip?
I think for the sake of the kids, I want to say yes, but I also think that Hannah's too much of, you know what, I don't need you in my life. It's another hard thing to say because I think for the kids, they would stay together. They would try to make it work, but I think a few years down the lines, they do eventually break up because it's just like too much, especially with like the fear that I think Hannah would have is that Jules now widowed and now she has the ability to, I guess not the ability, but she has the option to take Charlie if she wanted to. And I feel like Hannah doesn't have a good enough grip on Charlie to get him to want to stay. So it's hard. I think they would try, but I don't think it would work.
I think maybe Hannah would think about trying, and because they do have two kids, she would want it to, but I don't think they would in the long run. I don't know exactly how long they would try and stay together or not, but I think eventually Hannah would just be like, you know what? Forget this. Forget you. Like, I think she would just have an Olivia Rodrigo moment, and she would just like burn the place down and just be like, never mind. We're not coming back to that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Hannah has grown a lot on this trip. She started it seemingly very insecure, but she's ending it very powerful. Like, she wanted to be the one that murdered Will. Like, I think she got very independent, very bold. And I think she kind of realized, like, you know what? Like, I don't need Charlie because he, like, after their first child and then continued to have a second child with her, like, after cheating on her, like, I just think she felt that break. I think she felt her heart break. And they already weren't doing super great.
Yeah.
So I think it might have just been like the last straw and just kind of it all fell apart from there. But I imagine Hannah lives her best life, even though she has kids. And so she can't fully, just like run away or whatnot. But I think I can just imagine her like sitting on a beach or by a pool in like a nice tropical place. And there's like a cute cabana boy that like brings her daiquiris or something. And she just loves it.
I could see Hannah being a strong bisexual too. I could see her dating a woman after this.
She has those vibes.
Yeah.
I feel like she's at that point where she would be interested in like experiencing everything.
Yeah.
So she's open to it. She's kind of like, you know what? Charlie sucked, so let's try a nice lady. The other thing was, if they didn't, like, Hannah and Charlie didn't stay together, do you think Charlie and Jules would have gotten together?
Probably. Is there anything that you would say, like, any missed opportunities in this book? Anything you would have personally changed?
Don't know if it's necessarily a change. I would have liked to have known more about Jono at the end, because I know Aoife knows that Jono was involved with Will in that game that night that killed her brother. But
she did walk in on them on that cave scene where he's like, we need to tell people.
Yeah, she did walk in on the cave scene as well. So if she didn't know before, she knows now. But I feel like it was almost perfectly... I don't know if Aoife would have planned it or if it just kind of happened this way to her benefit, that Jono found Will and it made it seem like Jono did kill him. Because Jono had lots of motives behind it. But I wanted to know more about what happened to him, because I feel like that part was just very abrupt. We didn't even get much of that for the ending. It was like they called the police and they took Jono, but I want to know like what happened, because he didn't do it. And so like, are they going to interview everyone? Like how is Aoife going to get away from it or get away with it? And like Freddie doesn't even know. So I would have liked to have known more of a wrap up for Jono.
Literally ended right after they took Jono, and, Hannah saying, I wish I was the one that twisted the knife. I wish there was a little bit more of what happened after, maybe like a few months after, just see how, like a check-in on everybody.
Yeah, like where they at in life.
Yeah. And I also wanted to see just a little bit more suspense, get that thriller aspect in there. I wish there was a little bit more build on some stuff, so...
Oh, so it looks like Olivia does the epilogue, and it's several hours later. So her last line is, in the middle of everything else, all the shock and trauma of this whole night, it's just the two of us, my sister and me. So I think that's why I thought maybe her and Jules had a chance at repairing the relationship.
Yeah.
And then it looks like Hannah has an epilogue as well, where she says, you could say that Will's murderer avenged my sister too. I am only rather sorry I didn't get the chance to plunge the knife in myself.
I could definitely see them trying. I just don't think it's going to get as in-depth as they would want. But I think their relationship would definitely start getting better. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot between them that would get in the way. So
yeah.
Yeah, so before we go, we do a rating scale here on the Book Stop, so we kind of make up our own thing.
Okay.
I can go first if you want.
Sure. I
would give The Guest List a 4 out of 10 boat rides through rough waters to get to a deserted island just to die. I did like at the beginning how Hannah was, getting seasick a lot. I think that scene was just weirdly well written for some reason. I just really liked that scene. It stuck out to me a lot. So, but yeah, I liked this book, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. I loved learning something new, trying something new, but I'm just not a huge fan of mysteries, so that's why I gave it kind of a lower rating. So
it's funny because I do like mysteries, and I had fun reading it and trying to solve it, because I like being the sleuth and being like, okay, who did it and how do I know and how are we going to figure it out? So I was going to give it, I don't know if this is a good rating scale, but I was going to give it 8 stabs out of 10 stabs.
I love it. I mean, with Will, you should have just went for all 10, but we'll go with 8.
Whatever got the job done.
Exactly.
No, I think what brought it down for me was the slowness of the beginning and the, dragging on of each day. We went through a day and a half, and I felt like I was halfway through the book.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what brought the reading down for me. But otherwise, I enjoyed reading it. I had fun reading it and solving the mystery. And I really liked how all of the stories connected, even though originally it seemed like they were 5 random people, and it's like, how do these people connect? But then you get into it and you really see it pan out. And I think she did a great job writing it, a great job mapping it out. And so I really liked it still.
It was definitely a good book. Again, applause to Lucy Foley for doing an amazing job. Definitely check out this book. We can't give it justice. There's so much to it that we literally didn't even brush. Every little detail goes into the ending, so definitely check it out. I listened to it on YouTube. You can listen to it probably on any app, really. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've always wanted to be on a podcast, and I enjoyed my time. It was very fun.
Yay! I don't think you have a scheduled episode yet, but you'll definitely be back. I had a lot of fun, so
okay, for sure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for turning the pages with us this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support on social media. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to get a reminder of the next episode. Thanks again for listening to The Book Stop. Bye!